the most annoying time of the year once more. The time of the year when the powerful and the loudest in our culture expect us to celebrate not only the Queen Mother of all sins, but also to celebrate it in conjunction with deviant sexual behaviors. Um, so all this month we get to see Pride Month paraphernalia in front of every store, every big business, on every website, on every streaming service, and even on our historic monuments and buildings, including the White House. Because some perverts just can't stand the very idea that not everybody is constantly thinking about their creepy, gross, irregular, unnatural sex stuff. Just the fact that we don't all think about this stuff constantly is just an enigma to them, and so they must propagandize to us constantly. And if it seems like I'm being uncharitable in this video at any point toward the Pride community, it's probably just because I am sick of the constant barrage of sexual ideology propaganda that not only I and other adults have to deal with, but more importantly, that children are being subjected to and forced to endure just everywhere they look, just constantly, especially in schools. I mean, I've seen more than enough videos to just disturb me to my core of people preaching this stuff and celebrating this stuff to children, talking about sexual ideology to children. And the marketing of these twisted sexual ideologies to kids and adults alike is just, it's indiscriminate, and it grows only more and more aggressive every day. So I'm not going to be nice about this. When you target children, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Even Jesus said that anybody who goes against his children, who tries to lead his children astray, it would be better for him to have a millstone tied around his neck and have him be tossed in the sea. And I know that he probably wasn't being necessarily literal in that case, but if you harm a child, especially if you brutally harm a child, is that really such a harsh punishment? Is it really so inconceivable a punishment? So I'm not going to be nice to people who target children with this kind of stuff, who try to preach perversion to children. I'm just going to call it what it is. It's sick, and it's demonic. No two ways about it. I'm sorry. Well, not sorry. Anyone trying to foist and flaunt their sexuality in front of children is no more than a perverse hobgoblin who has been given over to a purely depraved and corrupt mind, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. So let's just get that out of the way right off the bat before I start this video. So it's been just over a year since my last video raving against Pride Month went pseudo-viral on Reddit, on rcringe. I say pseudo-viral because it was viral for me, because at the time I was getting maybe 8 to 17 views per video, and then all of a sudden I jumped up to 3,000 views on my Pride video, and then my subsequent video responding to the hate mail I received for the Pride video received something around 14.8 thousand views. So that was viral as far as I was concerned. And I tried to get this video that I'm doing now, I tried to get this video recorded and published sooner in this month, earlier in the month of June, to start Pride Month off right, but, I mean, give me a break, I just had a child, okay? I mean, cutest little baby in the world, you know, so obviously he takes entirely after his mother. But, so, needless to say, my schedule has been a bit full for some time now, so forgive me for being a little bit late to the party, but... And as you can probably tell, something else is different. I'm trying out green screen technology for the very first time. So you don't have to look at my ramshackle house behind me. But the downside being, of course, that it might take a while for me to get the hang of it. This is entirely new to me. I mean, look, you can see through me. And once it gets to yellow and green, you can see the books through my chest. So yeah, that's something new as well. So green screen technology, new baby in the house, a lot going on. So a lot of people last year were quite eager to tell me how much they hate my stand against pride and depravity, even more so that I did it with such poor production value. But come on, guys, I was brand new to the whole YouTube thing. I hadn't yet discovered OBS software. I had no idea what I was doing, so I do apologize that my early videos were so poorly made. I take ownership. My bad, guys. As for my stand against pride and depravity, that is going to continue. I will recant nary a word that I said in that video. In fact, allow me to emphatically say it again. Pride is still not a virtue. Pride is never going to be a virtue. It's never going to be a good thing. What it is annoying, ugly, and quite frankly, destructive. And this does not just apply to the LGBTQ plus minus exclamation point question mark 497 eye roll emoji community. This does not just apply to y'all, but seriously, I can't say enough. Stop with the acronyms and the made up words. We all know you're just trying to make yourselves feel special by adding new things to the list, but just stop. It's just annoying. You add a new one every day. And let's be honest, every time you add something new to the pride flag, it looks more and more like Care Bear vomit. It's a mess. But then, since I guess that's appropriate, seeing as how it's a symbol for the ugliest, most broken parts of humanity. So, par for the course. So as with everything that God creates, the rainbow it's a beautiful thing. It's a sign of God's promise. It's a wonderful thing. But as with everything God creates, humanity likes to tear it down and turn it into something ugly, or use it for something ugly. So I guess you're just doing what you do. I'm not sorry for saying it. I'm just sorry if I'm the first person honest enough to tell you what we're all thinking. Now, don't take this as me hating you or hating anybody else. I certainly don't hate you. In fact, I can't hate you if I'm in Christ. That's not allowed, okay? But I can love you and still tell you when you're getting on my nerves, okay? Just ask any of my 4 siblings. And I can certainly, on that note, I can love you and still disagree with you. Just ask my wife. In fact, I would say I'm obligated to disagree with you if it means telling you the truth. Love does not deceive. Love is honest. Love is honest as it is supposed to be kind. And sometimes harsh truth is the kindest thing that I can offer you. And rest assured, I'm a lot harder. For those of you who think that I'm just singling out homosexuals or members of the pride community, rest assured I am a lot harder on Christian heterosexuals who fornicate than I am on anybody else. It's all equally wrong before God. All sexual sin is equally wrong before God, and Christians ought to know better. But just because somebody's proclivities or inclinations towards sexual sin happen to be homosexual in nature when they sin, it doesn't make him any more or less guilty before God than the straight person who fornicates. So let's just get that out of the way. I'm not singling out the pride community. They are no more or less sinful than anybody else who engages in sexual sin, okay? So back to the point, no, pride is not a virtue. It never has been. It's never been a good thing. In fact, it is a synonym of conceit, vanity, and arrogance. Why you would insist on celebrating such a thing is beyond me. I mean, if you remember, pride was actually the first sin of mankind that led to our fall, and it was the vice of Lucifer which got him expelled from paradise, from heaven. In both instances, pride led to both destruction and ugliness. Lucifer, once a beautiful and impressive angel, became a despicable devil. And man's sin of pride brought the destruction of sin into the world, tainting the beauty of creation. By its very nature, pride separates us from God and from everything that is good, including from love and from those who may already love us. Pride has only the destructive power to separate, not to unify. Okay, it does not have that power. Thus, there is nothing good from indulging in it. Pride only has the power to separate us from everything that is good. It has no other kind of power. By celebrating pride, you only separate yourself from other people, from truth, and from beauty, because frankly, there is nothing attractive or appealing about pride itself. The only possible conclusion, as it has always been, is to live in isolated depravity and to be deprived of true joy. Nothing good comes out of it. Proverbs 11:2 tells us, when pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. When you take pride in yourself, when you endow yourself with laurels or any such thing, you blind yourself to your own faults, and you internally elevate yourself above others, often making yourself look like an idiot while doing so. Pride has always been the quickest way to destruction, as Scripture warns us. And it is not often the most subtle path. I mean, not only will pride destroy you, but it will make for sure that you have an audience while doing so. Look no further than everything about Pride Month celebrations for evidence of this. If you display yourself with pride and you advertise that, you are putting on display and portraying to the entire world the absolute worst things about yourself. It's not until you reject pride and embrace humility that you can afford yourself this little thing called wisdom. And you can see your own imperfections. You can see that you're not necessarily the biggest deal. That is not all about you in any case. And this eliminates the narcissism factor narcissism, easy for me to say, that pride inevitably produces in you or induces in you. Good thing too, because those are some really quite um, ugly traits to have. Now, it's an irony of a sort because you might think, at least according to modern logic, that pride and conceit could make you happier because they might give you a better self image, more self esteem. But in reality, the opposite is true. And being more humble, you become more attractive. And people take notice when pride is not at the forefront of your personality. People notice when you are a humble person, and that is attractive to them. It draws them to you. That in turn makes you a more confident person because people actually like you. What the concept, right? By rejecting pride, you become more charismatic, and you're actually a joy to be around. When you are prideful, no one can stand you. Pride distorts reality. That really is the long and short of it. Humility is a bit more of a realistic lens. It allows us to see things as they really are. Through pride, we can only see ourselves, and we see ourselves through kind of a distorted frame, kind of a stained glass window kind of situation. We might like what we see through the stained glass, but there's no substance to it. Humility is more of a telescope. We can see far more than just ourselves, and we can see them as they are, and we can actually reach out and touch them. It might even be as much of a microscope because we can kind of see the details that we might have missed before. But there's more to it, of course, but that's just kind of a brief way of pointing out the vast difference between the two, between pride and humility. A humble, generous man has never given enough charity by his own estimation. By stark contrast, the prideful, greedy man has given enough for a lifetime, no matter how little that amount might be. The wisest men in the world think that they are idiots. While the dumbest people in the world, again by stark contrast, think that they know everything. They're pure geniuses. They may never have read a single book in their life, but they scroll through social media all day and they see something and they have an opinion on it immediately. I mean, and they're always right, no matter what that opinion is. And that's the pride talking, and that pretty much describes teenagers, right? I mean, 16, 17-year-old boys and girls are the dumbest they've ever been or ever will be, but they know everything, right? And now we live in a society right now that is full of very old teenagers. Everybody knows nothing, and yet they all think that they know everything. Socrates is famous for having said, and I'll paraphrase, "All I know is that I know nothing." When he was brought for trial for corrupting the youth with his ideas, he pointed out that he had wanted to find out at some point who the wisest men alive were, and he had discovered that those in his day who called themselves wise men really didn't know that much. They just thought that they did. And Socrates, by contrast, knew very little about the world, and he knew that he knew very little. And that is why the oracles of his day declared him the wisest man of his day, because he knew that he knew nothing. Now, it is hard to understate the appeal the appeal and the benefits of such humility. Had Socrates been more of a prideful man, he certainly wouldn't have had the influence on cultures across the centuries that he has had. You probably never would have even heard his name. You will never meet a good man worthy of admiration who makes pride a personal virtue. It just does not exist. It won't happen. And there are no wise, prideful men. They don't exist. A wise person won't boast about how wise he is, right? And if somebody boasts about how humble they are, well, then there's the paradox. You will never truly see a humble person make a fool of himself. It's very hard to do. It's very hard to make humility look unattractive. It is very easy, by contrast, to make pride look unattractive because that's its nature. It's just the nature of the beast. And yes, I do use beast as a metaphor for the devil. Celebrate pride, really? That's what we're going with? Our nation has an entire month dedicated to the ugliest vice of mankind. It's not an appealing thing. And every time I see the overabundance of Pride Month ads, it's discouraging to say the least. I mean, pride is in and of itself ugly. It's an ugly thing. And when we have an entire nation that celebrates pride in various forms of sexual depravity, we are doubly ugly. It proves that we are not a particularly wise society. Wisdom has been cast aside. There is nothing enlightened about this, about us, when we engage in this kind of nonsense. We have regressed astronomically in recent decades, and the deterioration has been moving at warp speed over the last several decades. The culture wants you to believe that you should take pride in pursuing every inkling of the flesh and every perversity, every appetite, that you should boast about a complete lack of self-control and live for the indiscriminate pursuit of fleshly urges. That road does not lead to freedom or liberation. It certainly doesn't lead to happiness. The man who lives for the flesh becomes a slave to it, to sin. If you don't control yourself, your vice will. Your vice will control you. And it's an ugly and sad thing to watch, but we see it all the time with something as widespread and normalized as pornography. The more you use it and the less you rein in that impulse, the less you feel like you have any choice in the matter. The more you feel like you are being controlled by your vice. You ever wonder why the government and certain corporations so enthusiastically endorse such perversity as this? Maybe it's because if you embrace it, it makes you easy to manipulate. When you can't even control yourself, other forces can step in and do it for you. There is nothing about this pride movement to be proud of. It's just a bunch of people giving themselves over to a depraved and corrupt mind and making themselves easily controlled by both their own flesh and by the powers that be, and trying to get as many people as they can get to join in on their misery and their self-destruction. There's nothing about this movement that is empowering. The sexual ideology says that your sexuality and your desires are your identity. I've heard this many times from many people engaged in this ideology, and I can't think of anything more insulting than to say that your desires of the flesh, that your sexual impulses are who you are. But no, it's just a fallen part of yourself that needs to be controlled through discipline. That's it. That's just another urge that you don't act on, just like kleptomania, just like stealing. Okay, we're all born with certain sinful inclinations of our own, and we must all practice virtue to keep those inclinations at bay, certain things that we should not do. No one is special in this sense, and no one is their inclinations. Okay, I don't care if you're gay, straight, whatever. No one is their sexual desires. Your sexual desires are not who you are. But by the grace of God, by the power of his Son, Jesus Christ, freedom from all things is completely possible. Freedom from the bondage of these sins. Freedom from what we think we can't control in ourselves. Freedom from the death and eternal torment. Jesus Christ has defeated them all. He's defeated every bit of it. If we choose him, we are forgiven of the sins of our past. And we, by his grace, have the power to say no to our flesh in the now and in the future. That is what his grace is all about. You can come to him as you are, and he will set you free. You don't have to be perfect. None of us are perfect. I'm certainly not. You can come to him as you are, as your broken, miserable self, and he will set you free. The only condition that he will expect of you is that you soon represent him, and that you show the change that occurred in you with his help. That more of his children may follow your example, may follow suit, and find freedom as well. And that as many of you as possible will one day come home to him. That is his one condition. There is no such thing as sexual liberation, friends. It is a myth. Okay, the only true freedom that is possible to have is the freedom that Jesus Christ offers from the bondage of such sins. Sexual liberation is bondage. That's what it is, bondage to sin. It is the feeling that you have lost control of yourself. That is what sexual liberation is. And you have a choice between that and freedom. No one can make that choice for you. It's the most important choice you will ever make. But it is your choice. It's the choice between living for yourself, enslaving yourself to sin, and having God honor that choice in the afterlife, or choosing to be free of such devastation and to know peace and find purpose and meaning, the likes of which you will be hard-pressed to find anywhere else but with God. I mean, he is the purpose. He is the reason that anything matters at all is God. I mean, without God, nothing has meaning. With God, every tiny thing does. Everything matters with God. So no matter what you do, once you have Jesus Christ in your life, it matters. No matter what you do, and you will be part of something that has eternal significance. There is no greater cause, no greater joy than to know Christ. But you can't serve two masters. You have to choose one. You will always hate one master and serve the other. You can't have it both ways. You cannot have the freedom of Jesus Christ and your vices. It just can't work. So you must choose between serving the flesh and the temporary, meaningless things of this world, ultimately passing away into obscurity and torment, or serving God Almighty, knowing that you are infinitely loved, and getting to spend eternity in paradise, in the hereafter. The choice is freely yours, and I hope and pray that you make the right one. God bless you all.